tough spot when it's right after lunch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into, this session is going to be all about the global supply chain and how InterSystems Iris is going to address them. So the three of us are going to talk to you about this agenda. So what's the state of supply chain today? And then how can Iris accelerate time to value and the benefits in action, which we're going to be talking about with one of our partners, MTech. And then we're going to talk about the product roadmap and then open it up for Q&A. So the state of supply chain today is that if we look at all these, I'm sure none of these are you haven't heard of them, but we did a study of 700 different business leaders around the world, specific to retail, CPG, and manufacturing. And these 5 came up. And it's a lack of accurate end-to-end visibility, but it's around actionable insights. And then it's around the data silos. How do we normalize data? How can we be more predictive and prescriptive? We talked a little bit about that at the previous panel discussion that we had. And then there's significant manual processes that we have. There's constant manipulation and errors. And then delays, up to 15%, up to 3 days. So the whole time to decision is expanded when it really needs to be contracted to be much quicker. So IDC, so Neil was, if you happen to be at the panel discussion, so Neil's here with IDC. IDC views the left-hand side really as nothing different than what we just talked about. But the right-hand side is where InterSystems Iris really comes into play. I mean, we do help with supply chain visibility for sure, but it comes down to how do we better integrate with supply chain applications. And I think, being the fourth is going to be, when IDC does this again, it's probably going to be probably the second one on that list. We're hearing that it's the whole data silo issue is a big issue for us. I thought this one was really interesting, visibility and agility. For the first time, IDC said for their entire history of doing this report that agility became number 1, visibility came number 2. And visibility is almost like table stakes at this point. You have to have visibility, but it's now what do you do when you can sense disruption and there's visibility to disruption within the supply chain. What do you do with it at that point? And that's where agility comes into play. It's all about flexibility. If you look up over here, there's flexibility down the postponement of product SKUs, supplier diversification, and even flexible factories. Can we contract? Maybe we contract more, especially with there's so much disruption that we're having on the supply side. So again, agility is number 1. And then this I thought was interesting to say, because we talked a lot and we will be talking a lot throughout the rest of today, is on, if you move on this digital path of digitizing your supply chain, both profits and revenue typically will go up almost 21%. That's a big number. The future, and I thought this was interesting, I kept it as is, I didn't change anything here. So IDC's perspective is that it's going to be the future supply chain is data through analytics to action. So again, it's all around actionable insights. It's to be resilient to both internal and external disruptions, collaborative at scale, and that's something that we talked a little bit about because we're moving away from a linear supply chain to a more collaborative, dynamic, synchronized supply chain with all the ecosystem of players working together at the same time, and that we need to be more prescient and predictive. So we use the term prescriptive. Simon will say that he likes to say it a little bit differently. But the point is we need to go beyond even predictive. We need to then be prescriptive. So we need to be, and that's what we do with Iris, is we provide recommendations of what to do in the most optimal manner, and then it can be pushed into an application, an enterprise system, or given to somebody to make a decision on what to do as a recommendation. And then fast where not possible. So, we need to think outside the box. We no longer have to be complacent to get things done. We can be real time. This is just a little bit of an enhancement of what I just said, is that we are moving to the right-hand side. And typically, and again, this isn't my graphic, I am a board of directors or on the board with ASCM. We work very closely with Deloitte when we put this together. And the digital core, in my opinion, you could replace InterSystems Iris for that, because that's exactly where we play in this whole supply chain initiative. So what do we mean by accelerating time to value? So I really like to view what we do as a connective tissue. So every single company in some way will deal with literally every one of these players in their company, or they'll deal with maybe 50% of it. The point is, every company has multiple ERP systems, hundreds of application systems, obviously many suppliers, and then obviously the last mile, the stores. The point is that not one of these companies can bring it all together to truly give you a single, accurate, real-time next recommendations of what to do. Because ultimately, if you're looking at giving an example, an inventory number, right? What is the real inventory number? We talked about, I was at the Gartner conference actually in Florida yesterday, and we were talking about SAP. A company came to me and says, look, how could you help me? The forecasting accuracy is not where it needs to be. Our inventory, we don't have visibility to our inventory levels. Is because why? Because you have every single one of these players is holding inventory in some way. So you need to have a connected tissue. You need to have the ability of one data platform to bring it in, analyze it, and then give you intelligent, actionable insights to be able to do something with the data. That's what we do. And we do this with what makes us a differentiation in the market is that we have these 4 key capabilities coming together. So we integrate data, any source, any format. We harmonize and we normalize by bringing in data ingestion at rest, right? We're just not another data warehouse, data lake, but we're ingesting data to use it when we need it. If we come over to interoperability, we heard so much about that in the panel discussion previously. It's, there's the aspect of being able to simulate workflows and business processes in the data platform. You have to have that. Otherwise, how do you truly optimize within your supply chain on a data platform that then brings insights into it? So we have our own embedded AI and ML. I can't tell you how many times companies say, well, we got to go out and find somebody for an AI. We got to find somebody to optimize business processes. The reason why that we can give, we just won a major Fortune 200 food and beverage company about, I would say, almost 6 weeks ago. And we started with a POV. Ming's working very closely on us. It's within one of their brands. And we're presenting to them next week, 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, so this major company, we put it all through this data platform to give them most optimal recommendations of what to do. So it's accelerating time to value and helping them actually accelerate time to decision. And we do this in a way, we hear so much around data fabric. As we move into the middle, it's nothing different than what I just said, but I just thought it'd be a different way to show it, is that ultimately as you become more intertwined with your data and your whole middle piece of security and a connectivity, and then you move to the right, we call it smart data fabric. We take what Gartner and Forrester have come up with, and we take it to the next level. We call it our own data fabric, because again, Gartner will even admit this. I'm aware of nobody that can have all 4 key capabilities on one data platform, because we bring that embedded interoperability and we bring in that embedded analytics, the BI, specifically the AI and ML, all working together in real time to be able to help give you the best business outcome. So with that, this is my last slide before I introduce Paul, because Paul is using our system for his company, and he's going to go through value areas that he's used within his company on Iris. But we have seen a lot of these 3 areas. If I had to sum up where we're seeing a lot of optimization, it is around optimized fulfillment. I haven't spoken to one company that doesn't want to optimize fulfillment. It could be on the first mile into manufacturing, or it could be last mile to final consumption point or consumption point from a retail omni-channel. it doesn't matter. And it's demand sensing and forecasting. We want to be able to know when there's a shift in demand because of disruption within the supply chain, or maybe it's just the users are changing their need for a particular product, because we want to optimize inventory, we want to optimize on time in full. And we do it through demand sensing and forecasting, and then supply chain orchestration. We're going to talk about this in a little bit too, is the control tower, the command center. We also have as a solution the ultimate control tower. So we want to be able to manage the supply chain no matter what vertical. In fact, in this presentation that I had yesterday, we had 70% of the people that attended were in life sciences and healthcare, interesting enough. It's because they need, I mean, we got it right down to surgical scalpels going to the right surgeon at the right time. And it's a big deal. It's fascinating where Iris impacts supply chain. So with that, I'm going to introduce Paul, and Paul's going to take you through his company.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Paul Martin from MTech Computers. I'm the operations director. We've been using InterSystems platforms for over 27 years. We started developing ERP solutions in the mid-90s, and then since 2000 started also developing e-commerce solutions, also using InterSystems platforms which integrate into our sort of ERP solution. I'm just going to explain a bit about our software, our company, our clients, to give you an idea of the different kind of supply chain issues that we have. So MTech Computers has been going for some time. We have a complete range of clients in lots of different industries, so pharmaceutical, fashion, mobility, including 3PL, so we're used to the 3PL customers and their requirements. But that in itself, just the variety encompasses a number of supply chain differences. We've got pharmaceutical companies that can order some products today for delivery tomorrow. And we've got mobility companies that need to order from China on a sort of a 3-month lead time. So there's all sorts of different sort of options for some of our sort of customers and challenges that they have. Our product, Ammo, is an ERP solution which covers all the business's requirements from sort of end to end, really, from taking an order, purchasing the order from wherever in the world, forecasting, inventory, warehouse management, the complete cycle, including an account suite for nominal purchase and sales ledger. And integrated into that, we also have e-commerce websites. So the supply chain hits a number of those different sort of areas. Websites we started developing, as I said, since 2000, which integrate completely and seamlessly. So all the information in our ERP solutions is available to the e-commerce system. So all the stock is available in real time on the website, including what stock's coming in some cases if customers want to sort of work in that way. Also, we have EPOS solutions, so that not only have we got sort of back office systems to handle warehousing and purchasing and stock control, and e-commerce solutions for gathering sales. We also have EPOS solutions in shops and in showrooms, so people can literally order from whatever channel they want to and have it delivered on another channel. They can order over the internet and collect it from a shop, or order in a shop because it's not perhaps got the right size or availability in the shop, and they can have it delivered by a courier. In terms of integrations that we do, again, from a supply chain perspective, we integrate with an awful lot of couriers for a lot of our clients. And the reason we have to integrate with so many different couriers is because of the different clients' requirements or the products' requirements. Some are products that need to be, that might be inflammable, for example, so they need to go with certain couriers. Some are a certain weight, so they can only go with other couriers. Certain couriers only manage overseas operations. Highlands and Islands, if you wanted to get there more quickly, needs a different courier again. So we integrate with a whole range of different couriers. And also integrate with payment gateways and sales channels. These days, a lot of our sales from a lot of customers are coming through automatically. Relatively few these days come from call centres. It's coming from sort of online e-commerce sites, partners with e-commerce sites, People like sort of Voucher and Groupon sort of feed some of our clients' orders. We've also seen a growth in different payment gateways. So in the last few years, we've seen people like Klarna and ClearPay for the buy now, pay later sort of options. And that's sort of come into play. Obviously, it's all well having these sort of integrated systems, but when you hit sort of supply chain problems, there's not necessarily the answer, there immediately. We're going to look at a few issues, supply issues that customers had and what we did to help them. One of these was shortages, and another would be digital transformation, but I'll just go through some examples. A lot of our clients, when COVID hit, for example, had various kind of combinations of issues, really. The most notable and obvious one is the supply shortage, when the world kind of locks down and goods just can't get moving. So a lot of clients had supply issues. And combined with that, you had changes in customers' behaviour. So people suddenly went online and bought more items. So customers were sort of caught out. There's more demand for products than they had before. Even the kinds of orders they had was different. This particular client that we had immediately got to 100,000 outstanding orders, and there were different orders than they'd normally have. They were used to having 2.2 items on an order. They don't normally have to split the order, and they normally have stock. And suddenly they're faced with 100,000 back orders with sometimes between 5 and 10 items on an order, which they then have to consider splitting, which they'd never considered before. And then some of those items are out of stock because they can't get to their sort of to the supplier. So what we did in that case, and we had to work quite quickly because with the gardening company, that the goods are kind of perishable, so they can't have goods sort of sitting around there forever. So we worked on writing certain scripts and dashboards to give people visibility of the data so they could make decisions. So we ended up being able to provide information to the management to say, if you did this, then you could get this many orders out. If you did this, we could split them in this way and still get some orders out. So very quickly, they were able to fulfill a certain element of the orders. 25% of orders could be fulfilled straight away just by reallocating stock, which they wouldn't normally have to do. And then in other cases, it was what's the most efficient way of splitting orders so that we have as few splits as possible and still get some stock out to customers so they're not sat here sort of decaying. And this was something that they wouldn't normally have had to do, and it's only because of this, all these sort of sudden unforeseen actions, COVID causing, sort of a ripple effect. What was one kind of business suddenly turned into something slightly different, sort of almost overnight. So the ability to be able to react quickly and give them the information so they can make a decision was kind of key. The other thing that did change, as you can see by this graph, was the internet activity. Once COVID hit, a lot more people suddenly started ordering online, and a lot of our customers have a very healthy online presence. So you can see some of the later peaks there of when COVID and when there was lockdown, and even where it ended up is still sort of higher than the normal kind of increase. So there has been a kind of a drop down after COVID that most clients have experienced. They had an initial surge of more customers, and then as people sort of, as the retail sector kind of opened, they then ended up being able to go back to the shops and ordering slightly less online. Although once you become an online customer, it sort of encourages you to place online orders more, and your details are now with suppliers that can actually email you and contact you and encourage you back online. One of the effects this had on sort of a lot of our customers was this processor demand on web servers, database servers just went went high very quickly. 50 to 100% increase in orders and demand was not unusual. So it was very important to have a good, reliable platform on which these systems were built. And we use InterSystems RS platform for both the back office ERP solution and for e-commerce websites, which helped us. And this just sort of proves really how resilient and scalable the InterSystems technology is. And we've been using it for many years. And as a general rule, we know that with clients that we have, what they're able to run on kit-wise is a lot less than sort of competing systems, which generally require sort of more expensive solutions. So yeah, we're very happy with sort of the InterSystems platform. We don't really ever consider any scalability issues. We don't consider what happens if the website gets busy. It doesn't, it's something that thankfully we don't really have to think too much about. Black Fridays, are not a major concern to us, because we know it can cope and is scalable. Digital transformation is something that we also experienced. We had one of our clients that had a healthy online presence, but also had a lot of showrooms. And obviously when COVID hit, the showrooms all closed. So then they had to try and get those people that would have come into showrooms online and purchasing. And some of the difficulties there is when you're a salesman in a showroom selling something, you don't realize quite how sophisticated and complex that transaction is. And you have to try and migrate that to the web. And when you're buying things like mobility scooters, where you'd like to have a demo as well, it's quite a challenge. So one of our clients put a lot more effort into the websites, added extra content, a lot of video to show people what the products looked like, how they moved, reviewed them. They had real kind of people that they were able to call on. So not the robot chat kind of options, but real people chat options. Just to try and get those people to buy online instead of going into the showrooms, which they weren't going to be able to do. And some of these people, would have wanted solutions kind of then. They wanted a mobility scooter in the next few months. They wouldn't be able to wait a year for it. So it's quite important to have that additional content on the website. And that's obviously benefited them going forwards, because now they've got a much stronger, much better website. And that similar thing happened with some other clients as well, where they improved the quality of the website with video and with chat to try and encourage people to make the decisions online so they didn't have to go to the shops. In terms of the future, I think what our sort of clients have learned is the fact that you're used to a particular business and you're used to it running in a particular way. You know how many orders a day you get, you know how big the orders are, you know what your top popular products are. And then suddenly something unexpected happens, whether it's COVID, whether it's the war in Ukraine, whether it's the dollar exchange rate, suddenly making things a lot more expensive. Customers just need to be much more flexible. They need to be aware that what was normal can change overnight. So they need to be collecting data all the time for potential scenarios. They need to have more parameters, more functionality than they thought they might need. And they need to be able to be very agile, to be able to move very quickly. When something happens, they need to be able to see this in terms of useful data and then be able to make decisions on it. Certainly, the number of dashboards we've had, in the last sort of 18 months has grown considerably to give people more visibility on data, so they can make decisions easily. And really, it is like a pyramid. The more data you have, the more intelligence you can kind of build into it, and then the actual suggestions right at the top are reliant on that complete pyramid of data. So it's really key to sort of be able to capture that all the time. So that's a bit about sort of real world experience of us as a supplier to different clients and what they were sort of going through and how we tried to help them using InterSystems products. I'll hand you over to Ming.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so you have heard from Mark that what kind of challenges today the supply chain is facing and how InterSystems technology is well positioned to handle a lot of those challenges. And Paul have shared some of his experience and with his company, how InterSystems technology were used to tackle some of those challenges, right? Through whether it's integration or some other performance or other challenges. So hopefully you get you a little bit excited, if not really excited. You say, yes, let's see how InterSystems can help me, my company. So then you're saying, what do you got to offer, right? Do you have a product called supply chain, or you have a control tower, or you have an ERP? So that's what I'm going to be here talk about. So what we are offering today and tomorrow, and what can we get you to start today to start your supply chain journey with InterSystems technology. Before I get to the details, I want to walk you through the slides without worrying too much about the little font, small details. So if you think about supply chain digitalization, that journey, there's really no magic. There's a lot of common sense in this one, right? The first step, what you do, you need to get all your data together, right? From different systems, from different silos, in different format, require different protocols, right? Paul talked about how many systems that you're integrating with, right? So you need to get everything there to have a basis in order to do anything with it, right? So that's first step. No surprises to anybody there. Once you get it, you want to see visibility. How do you measure visibility? You're not going to try to read every transaction record, right? So you want to look at the higher level. So to get some of the KPIs, supply chain is heavily driven by KPIs, right, on a regular basis. So you can define KPIs on the performance of your supply chain, how well your business is doing, right? Is your revenue trending on target, trending in the right direction or the wrong direction? It can be a KPI to measure what kind of risks you may have. The risk related to COVID, a risk related to exchange rate, right? So all of these things can create risks. So you do that visibility through this kind of approach. And then with everything together, say, okay, now I know what's happening in my supply chain. But I cannot spread my energy everywhere. I need to really focus on a lot of the risk-related things. What kind of problems I have, I need to focus my energy on in a day-to-day basis, right, on a regular basis. So you are trying to get additional extraction about the risks. So once you identify risks, I'll give you an example. You identify 300 late shipment. You cannot take care of 300 shipments in a day, but you probably don't need to. Then you really understand what's the impact of each of these risks on your business, right? So you got to have understanding of each of these impacts. So then you can really focus on resources or energy on the right things at the right time to really give you the best benefit to your business. Once you understand that, you still will probably thinking, okay, so it's all good. Now you tell me what problems I have, where I should focus my energy on, and now what? What should I do? And that's the last bullet point there. You want to get some help. What are the intelligent decisions you can make to really help your business, to achieve your business goals? So this journey, I think, is no surprise to anybody. So you might be wondering, yeah, everybody understands this. Why aren't people doing it today, right? So what's the difficulty? So for that, I'm going to divert a little bit from my transcript, inspired by our keynote speaker, Neil, today. So Neil talked about data is the new oxygen, right? But that reminds me a couple years ago, I heard this phrase from a big company, a very large company with 400,000 employees. They talk about data is a new natural resources. Of course, Neil proved it today, data is not really oil. Oil is kind of a natural resources we're talking about, right? But I think there's still some merit to that analogy. I'll give you some examples. Like every business, you need to have natural resources to run, right? Whether it's energy, raw material, in some way, some form, you need natural resources. Today's modern business, you need data. You cannot run a business without data, right? So that's kind of, makes sense. And then the other thing is, unique thing about natural resources, most of us today in the modern society, we don't know what to do with it as a consumer, right? So if you have to refine crude oil to drive your car, how many of you will be driving a car today, right? So it's the same thing about data. People want to do this. They understand this. But they don't want to build a refinery in order to achieve that goal because it's too hard or they cannot invest in that. So that's where the challenge is, and that's where our InterSystems is trying to help. So we want to give you that heavy lifting of that refinery, that entire industry distribution system, that network that can get you to where you want to go without worrying too much about how do I do this technology, how do I integrate A to B's and C's. So that's where we're going as a product strategy. So what do we have? I think everybody here probably know InterSystems Iris. That's our smart data fabric, data platform. That's the foundation for everything. And we are no exception. We will be heavily leveraging everything And I literally mean everything that IRIS got to offer to build our supply chain solutions, right? That's whether you're talking about, the core database, interoperabilities, ML capabilities, BIs, MLs, you name it. We need all of those tools. But we don't want to just give you a generic data platform to solve all supply chain problems. It's like, I'm not going to tell you, I have a language called Python. You can implement everything, right, to implement with Python. But that's not the solution to every business problem. The same thing, you have the data platform. We want to make things easier, right? The heavy lifting, the refinery things I was talking about, and we want to do those things for you for supply chain. And that's what this middle layer is about. We have a supply chain framework built on top of IRIS, which will do a lot of those heavy lifting for you. And I will get to some more details. What do we have within that framework? And on top of that, we also have a bunch of acronyms there. SC, SDS, what are those things? I probably should spell it out, which I will in the next slides. Those mean smart data services. Those are the cloud native services. The idea is we cannot build everything your supply chain needs. Everybody's supply chain is different, right? InterSystems cannot solve everybody's problem. But we can engage our community, our client, our partners. We can all build things together and share information, share technology together. And that's what those things about, which I'll also be talking in a few seconds, a few minutes later. So the framework. What is the supply chain framework that InterSystems is offering? At the high level, this is a branded IRIS data platform that speaks supply chain language, right? And how do we do that? There's a bunch of things which I'll cover. And also, the goal is to allow you to focus on your business instead of worrying about technology. So we don't want you to know how to refine crude oil in order to drive a car. That's the idea. How do we do that? So from the data platform speaking the language, out of box, we provide a canonical data model. So you may be challenging me and say, Ming, there's no way you can provide a data model which will support supply chain across all the industries. You're right, we cannot. Everybody's doing things differently. But there's a lot of commonalities. The common saying, I don't know if it's a Gartner's number or IDC number, one of those analyst numbers, 80% supply chain are common. 20% are unique, right, to their own business, to their own industry. So the idea here is if we can capture 80%, we do a lot of heavy lifting already, and then we make this model that you can easily extend and still maintainable after you extend it over time to support that extra 20%. And remember, that 20% is the most important part of the business. That's what makes the business unique, right? Different from one to the other. So we got to be able to support that, and which we do today. And because we have the data model built in, we also pre-built quite a few analytics cubes. So in case you want to do some analytics work, you don't have to really do a lot of heavy lifting. We are doing that for you. And again, keep the open-minded, extendable mind in place. We allow you, as you know, IRIS analytics allow you to extend analytics as well. So we do a lot of heavy lifting for you. For that 20% you want to include for your specific business, you can extend that. I talk about KPI a little bit. So out of box, we don't ship any KPIs. Why? Because everybody measures things differently. I'll give you an example. So late shipment. If you talk to different people, different group, even within the same organization, their definition of late shipment is different based on their business functions or other things. So there is no way you can define a universal KPI for that. So instead, we provide a simple way we let you configure it. We give you a framework that you can make one configuration. You define your own business logic. You define your own metrics to capture your own risks in your supply chain. So that's what this framework is about. And then it's about issue lifecycle management. So we help you to manage issues across your supply chain, whether it's generates from the KPIs. We can configure KPI to automatically generate issues, or it can be externally generated. So you have another system in the supply chain that you are using, which give you alert. You can put those issues into our Iris platform. And then using Iris to manage the life cycle of these things to generate actionable insight, among other things. And there's a bunch of other stuff that are listed there, which will help you along the way. So this is a quick slide on smart data services. Again, I'm not going to bother you with the technical details. There's a lot we offer than what I'm showing on this picture. Here, I'm only showing you from the consumer perspective who need to use these services, right? These services are cloud native, available in a cloud catalog, and work seamlessly with Iris for supply chain. And if you see something you like, say a track and trace service, right? We talked a lot today in the early panel and early pause conversation. And you can take that one. It can be a UPS tracking service. It can be a MacroPoint tracking service. It could be a lot of these things. It's a community. So this is more not just for us, for InterSystems. It's also for like partners like Paul or others, and even some of our clients. They can put their solutions, services available into the catalog. So we can make things available easily through our ecosystem to really expand your customer base. So that's the idea about smart data service. Looks like I'm running out of time here. I'm going to quickly run through a couple slides more, then I'm done. So analytics is at the center of any data platform, right? So I'm not going to bother you with the details. Just one quick thing I want to highlight on this one is the universal semantic layer. What does that mean? So we talk about getting data into the platform, right? We all know that. I mean, all the data lake warehouse solutions focus on that part. This is really focusing on when you get every data in, you did your analytics, then how do you help the consumer of the data? By consumer, I mean it can be a BI tool, it can be an ML tool, it can be some other control tower thing. So each of these requires accessing data in a different way, right? The control tower may see the transaction details, what's the order status, right? That requires access into maybe like a relational database. Versus if you are doing some like a data scientist, they need the data to be presented in such a way that can be fed into ML training. That requires different form. Versus you want to run a BI report, then you need your data into some OLAP structure, right? In order to run your BI report. This semantic layer that allow you to do everything without moving your data. And you can configure the way for your business need. So that's really, you think about outlooking, right? Consuming of the data. That's what it provides you. That makes our system very flexible. I think this probably will be my last slide. So at the center of everything is interoperability. You probably heard about this. If you're using Iris, you already know this. But in a lot of people's mind, interoperability means what? Connecting data, right? So yes, it is about connecting data from within your enterprise systems across company boundaries and all kind of things. But it's also more than that. It's also about process connectivity as well. It connects process from your internal process within Iris, outside Iris. It connects the data to your process, which is very important once you get to the actionable insight and some of those capabilities we want to show you later. And at the end of the day, is really connecting what? Connecting your business use case to the smart data fabric capabilities. And really connecting technology to business solution. So interoperability is the key for that. So with that, we're gonna combine the next session together. We're gonna keep going without a break. So Mark is going to give you an overview, and then I'll be coming back here to give you a demo. Mark.
And then what we'll do at the end too is Paul stay here, and then we can open up for Q&A to cover both sessions. So before I jump into this, is that I really like this particular video. I've been doing it for the last couple of years, and it's really where the state of supply chain needs to go. It's not there yet, but it needs to go. It's a very dramatic way of showing it. And it is exactly where we are taking InterSystems Iris and how we're going to be impacting the supply chain. And Ming's going to show you our own ultimate control tower toward the end. But I just wanted to get your juices flowing about, where ultimately we need to go.
Command, I'm getting an alert. It appears we have insufficient inventory to fulfill an incoming order.
Production, what's going on?
We're predicting schedule changes due to unplanned weather conditions.
Analytics?
Forecasts show a storm hitting in 24 hours. Social listening confirms the track, and sensitivity models are predicting asset downtime due to flooding and workforce limitations.
Delays in delivery of raw materials could cause capacity loss of up to 26%.
Production, what can we do?
Running alternative production scenarios now. Our best option is to add capacity at the Northeast plant. An overtime shift would meet demand at positive margin impact. The problem is raw material inventory is too low for additional production.
Supply, if we did go into overtime, is there anything you can do to get the raw materials there in time?
Scanning inventory positions in storage and in transit. I've got raw materials on their way, but 5 days out. Wait. There's material in a warehouse we could get there in 2 days if we ship by air.
We've got clear weather on that route and a 150-knot tailwind, which will save on fuel.
We got raw materials in 2 days. We could make the order on time and stay within margin thresholds.
Exceptions. Can we make this call to go into overtime and divert materials?
Verifying this is within our tolerance to make a decision automatically. Command, we're good to go. No need to escalate to the supply chain planner.
Okay, Digital Supply Network. Let's do it.
Great. And so it's really all about on time in full when it comes down to it, in a very prescriptive way, recommended, being able to provide recommendations through the technology to help assist human decision making. So it's pretty cool, and it's exactly what we're building here at InterSystems. So on this one, I just wanted to leave you on this before I bring it back over to Ming, is in talking with Gartner. So Christian is out of Germany, and so when we talk a lot about what our technology does, he said to me, he says, look, from his perspective, he sees 5 key blocks of a supply chain command center or control tower. And we play in every one of these. And so there's integration, we've talked about that. There's insights, we talked about that. There's algorithms. Obviously, it's clearly embedded in what we do. And then the digital supply chain twin. It's going to take, it's not easy to do. It's something that eventually we'll get to, but according to Kristen, it is going to be one of those 5 that ultimately we need to get to. And then the data hub, right? Visualization and data management. So these are the 5 key areas that he feels that we need to have as an ultimate control tower. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Ming.
Thanks, Mark. So what we will do next is I'm going to walk you through one use case scenario, which start with a disruption at the manufacturing facility. So this is that give you an idea. This is one type of supply chain, right? You get manufacturing involved, and then see how we are addressing the manufacturing issues. But the problem doesn't stop there, because to really address that problem, you need your whole supply chain to work together. We'll go through the logistics side of things, story, and then at the end, we even look at the end customer. So what's the impact if something doesn't happen as expected to all the way to your end customers? So you will go through all of these things in your supply chain and how our InterSystems for supply chain technology can help in that scenario. So just give me a second. Let me set things up first, and we will get started right now. Okay. So this is one of our demo UI that we use to showcase the capabilities. All right. So first of all, I want to highlight a few things here. So on the left side menu, you will see a bunch of supply chain functional areas from orders to shipment to inventory to manufacturing. That's just the highlight of some of the area we cover with our supply chain data model. So we have some use cases in each of these areas that we can cover through this demo use case. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with the manufacturing facility. So this is a manufacturing screen showing the operation efficiency of equipment at different facility manufacturing plant locations across Europe, mostly in Germany, I guess. So what we are showing here is the status at each of these facilities. What is the operating efficiencies? And then you can even drill down into individual facility to look at individual machines, what kind of issues you might be having, among other things. So why we're showing this? So I want to highlight one thing. InterSystems technology is very good with data, right? So it's data from different sources. So Paul talked about a lot of ERP data, right? That's a business transaction data. So here I'm going to show you something which is not a business, not ERP type of information. This started with IoT data. So we heard a lot about IoTs, right? So here the IoT data will be connecting information from every machineries on your floor with like temperatures, with pressures, with vibrations, and all of those things. So from there, that you can see how your systems are operating. So for example, in this one, everything looks good, but from my software, I can simulate something goes wrong. So if I simulate this particular system will have a problem, so right away the system was alerted that we may have a problem somewhere. And actually it's not just alerting us, it's doing its analysis behind the scene for you to see what is the problem and how should you work around this problem. So if we look at that here, we will see some information available to showing us what's going on, something is broken, and you may have to take some actions. In order to repair certain things, you need some parts, like a motor or something. And from here, you can directly place an order for the parts required for the service. So once you click on that, the system will take the action by automatically integrating to your order system, to the ERP system to place the POs, and then for the parts to start being made and then shipped to your location, right? So from there, we can then track it through our logistic feed capabilities. So we're going to move from manufacturing to logistics part. So here is another view of your supply chain. This is focused on the shipment. On the top, there's a bunch of KPIs that we configured. Remember, this is everything that we have control over, and we can easily modify, erasing, adding new ones. Not only that, the first three, supply chain shipment, you can see the different KPIs. We also track what kind of issues that you have in your logistic area. So we have 28 open issues there. We don't have anything waiting for decisions or severe at this point. I want to highlight the first KPI we're showing here. This is what we call predicted late supply shipment. So unlike the other KPIs, the middle one measures the actual shipment already late. That means we haven't got it, but you already missed the date, right? The date already passed, we haven't got it. The estimated late is really something for, we talked earlier, there was a question about tracking things, right? The providers, carriers can give you like a UPS, give you update ETAs, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so accurate. So we can use that to define how many might be late. And this predicted late is really leveraging our platform capability by building your own ML model based on prior history that you already captured on the data platform. That could be, for certain suppliers shipping to certain locations by certain carriers through certain transportation mode, and you can create your machine learning model to predict the ETAs based on your history data. So that's what we are showing here. So this model captures three. You see the gap between these two? Because not all ML models will predict everything. You may not have enough data to predict certain route, right? You just cannot do it with 3 data points. So you can maybe only do things with those routes that you have sufficient information. So we predict 3 will be late. And if we go to that 3 late ones, so I go to predicted late, we're seeing 3 here, late. And one of them is, I think, is the ones that relate to the manufacturing facility, the Darmstadt plant. This one, yeah. So this is a shipment corresponding to that use case. I just simulated the breakdown things. Apparently, it's shipping a part from somewhere in southern China to Germany, right? And something happened to this one. So let's see what happens. Well, here's the details. So we're showing the shipment, some of the shipment basic information, and we're showing the issue. So this issue is automatically generated by the KPI you defined using the ML model you built, right? So it's all from our platform. And you don't have to do much extra effort to see this because they are all integrated together through interoperability. So if you look at these issue details, you see some very limited information about severity, urgencies, some default ones. But you probably want to run additional analysis to see more information. So I can run a live one, so using a different process. So this is a default one configured by your KPI. So I'm going to just run a different one here. So that have more logic built in. So here, okay, now I see. Because this is a custom order with a single source supplier, and we don't have other options to get the part to the plant on time. Unfortunately, it's not a general commodity that you can buy from different vendors. Current inventory also shows we don't have extra spare parts available. So that means we are looking at options by your product suppliers, right? We are also looking at the inventory positions of these parts across all networks in your organization, but we don't have any solutions there. And due to the late of these required parts, some of the sales orders will be impacted. Why? Because these machineries are reserved to produce product that your customer order. Unfortunately, we don't have a solution for this part to be shipped there on time. As a result of that, your customer orders will be impacted. There seems to be not much we can do with the shipment. However, the system automatically creates issues for us to track, for those orders impacted. Maybe there is something you can do from the order side, even though we cannot do much with the shipment. So let's take a look at from the order side. So on the order side, you'll see similar screens. You'll see a bunch of KPIs, and you can, configure and define your own KPIs. And if you have time, I will show you can do live configuration of that. And you also see some issues, a lot of issues with orders here. And one of them is waiting for decision. So if I open that particular one, here we go. And this is one of the orders got impacted by if we don't have the parts to be at the manufacturing plant at the right time to service the machine, then we cannot fulfill this order on time. And the system already run analysis for us. It will go through all these details saying what's causing it, we know what's causing it, and the impact, right? So in addition to the dollar amount impact, if you don't fulfill this order, you know the penalty clause, right, for that on time. And there's also major customer satisfaction concerns involved. So then what can we do? Maybe there's something you can do about this order. And the system actually going through the analysis come up with 3 options. Option A, so this order was originally allocated to be made at the Darmstadt plant location. Maybe we can move this order to Hamburg plant, where the same product can be produced over there. Now, nothing is for free. If you do that, we also get you the impact analysis result. So if we do that, the order will fulfill on time. That's a good thing. But the negative side is you'll have extra cost, shipping costs. And not only that, because we are adding extra workload on another manufacturing plant location, and then that particular location will require an early maintenance window, right? Every machinery have its scheduled maintenance window. And so if you do this option, you have to keep those things in mind. right? If you move the maintenance window early, do you have the right parts orders which will get there on time? If not, you're going to run into this cycle again, right? And then option B is, don't worry about it. We're not going to do anything. Just wait for the parts. Once we get the parts, we finish the maintenance, fix the machine, and then we'll use expedited shipping to send the final order to the customer. So what's the impact? And we're expecting some dollar amount for extra shipping, expedited shipping, and then there was still a delay. You still cannot make it on time, despite you're using expedited shipping. And there's a third option we're providing here, which is leveraging spare parts in another plant, leveraging parts in another plant, and which was reserved for its original scheduled service. So we are going to delay that one, and then redirect the current shipment to Munich location. Of course, there's cost associated with that, and the cost will be, if you do this, we can have this current order shipped, delivered on time. But by doing this, because we are delaying the maintenance at another plant, we are putting another $250,000 sales orders at risk. So you have to do all the right trade-offs, right? And the logic, you define, and the business rules, you define, and then our platform will provide you with an analysis result. So even though we recommend some options, but you can take whatever other options and then give your explanation why you're overriding the system recommendations to take a different option if you choose to do so. So another thing to keep in mind is, because our data flow platform keep record of everything that we do through our interoperability platform. So we are keeping a record of, for all of these situations, what was recommended, what the end user finally decided to go with. So our system can use that to keep learning from this experience. So over time, when similar problem happens again, we may not need to present the user such a screen to say, you help us help to make a decision. So the system, once gained enough confidence, we can automatically execute that logic in the future. So then really it take the human person out of the loop, so system can automatically to execute. So whatever position or option you pick, the system will continue to execute the remaining logic, whether it's to do a transfer order, whether it's to generate a different manufacturing order, whether it's to do something else, right, in other systems, or just send a notification to somebody and say, you need to do this now instead of doing that, right? It could be as simple as that. So, but the idea is the platform will do a lot for you once you configure it right. So I talked about some of these capabilities earlier, that how interoperability brings things together. And I'm going to give you one example of that, how we're doing that through this KPI. So you see one of the KPIs is blank here. So what I would do is I can just create another one and see what happens, and using whatever logic. So as part of the KPI definition, I'm just getting all the KPIs I have defined in the system. So maybe it's hard for you to read, but I want to go through these quickly, not to bother you with the technical details, but to show you the main components in this definition. So in the definition, there's a lot of, there's KPI condition, of course. That's your business logic. Don't worry about the syntax of that. So you define your business logic based on your how you run your business. And then you can also define, what are the base objects, right? So we are tying, like what we're saying, your data in different forms from your original data form to the analytics data. So we have cubes involved here. So we also have these condition dimensions, and then issue generating. The issue generating is if some records meeting this KPI condition, we want automatically generate issue, right, for you. And that it doesn't stop there. If you have an issue, you want to run analysis, and we can also integrated with your business process here that ties everything together. So what business process will do, it will leverage whatever business rules you configure. If you use any ML model, that will be included. And if you have other systems, you need to get additional information to do the things, and that will be included as well. So the system will combine all of these things together, right? Data, analytics, ML, and integrations and everything into one configuration. So once you define this, you're done. Your data keep coming in, right? Your transactional information, your IoT information keep coming in. The system runs it on its own. Will detect which one has a problem, and if we find that there's a problem, we'll create an issue, and we'll run that issue through the business process to run through the ML model, and then comes out of those recommendations for you. So it's almost like we have a little refinery in there, right? You put in your crude oil, and then you just need to decide you're going to fill up your car, you're going to turn on the heaters on your house to heat your house. So you can focus on your business, not worrying about how the analytics work with ML, works with other integrations of a process. So all of those things are taken care of for you through one configuration. So this is just one of the example I was going to show you. Looks like we are running out of time again, so maybe I'm not going to bother you with the details. I make one API call, the KPI goes in, it will show up there. So it's as simple as that. But instead of doing that, I probably will stop here, and let's switch back to the PowerPoint. Let's wrap things up. Okay, so let's keep going. So we got this one. So the key takeaways. So I'm not going to bother you by reading all the sentences here. A couple of things I want to highlight is connective tissue is one of the key, particularly when we talk to supply chain people who are not IT people. They don't understand what smart data fabric means. But if you talk to them in terms of connective tissue, you talk to them about accelerating time to value, they do understand. They're willing to give your technology or solution a try. And that's what our key message here is about our supply chain solutions. So with that, next step, let's talk. Paul, Mark, I, and a bunch of others, people will be around today and tomorrow. So feel free to connect and find out more information. And so with that, I'm going to open for questions.
Sorry, Ming, just a quick question. So on this platform that you're putting out here, this is something we can, as we can set up our own platforms for, say, for example, for our own customers to, and we'll build the ML, we'll build the AI models, we'll build the...
Peter, can you speak up a little bit?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I did that. So with this platform, this is a service that you'll be providing for say, us as, solution providers for our customers, so we can build a sort of a whole supply chain model with, we include our own AI models in it,
Yeah.
ML models, where you can pull in the KPIs that you've shown there, and the data comes to that model from REST adapters and things that we would have connecting the various ERP systems and those sort of, WMS systems and et cetera, and that's just a one standard interface, pulling all that together, giving the customer a full supply chain visibility.
Exactly. We providing enabling technologies, right? So out of box, for example, the framework itself doesn't provide any supply chain specific features, right? There's no ML model in that. There's no KPIs pre-built out of that, but we give you the capability that you can easily add your own logic to it. So that framework can work with your specific use case. And then those additional cloud-based services that you, us, and others can all contribute to that, and that can all seamlessly working together by picking the right one from the catalog, and we'll work with the Iris for supply chain and the rest of the stuff.
Fantastic, that's great. No, that's perfect, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
There's a question over here, yeah.
Hi, Paul Bevan from Bloor Research. When you're starting off with a new customer, what's the approach that you suggest is taken to, if you like, to start building the control tower? Because obviously, you know, lots and lots of moving parts. So how do you get, you know, people to take the risk, if you like, of moving to a system like this? What's the way in which you approach that?
Yeah. So, Mark, you want to
I
try?
and you can add to it, but typically we do a limited scope. So we'll do something, let's say, around a POV. We call it the proof of value. And we'll do a limited scope, and we'll say, look, let's pick one KPI. And we'll prove that out by reaching out to all the different data points that have to be brought into the platform to show it against that particular KPI over a short period of time. Typically, we like to do our POVs over 6 weeks. So that's what we do. You know, it's very, it's succinct, it's short. We prove the value. We agree upon the success criteria. And because a control tower is typically, right, as many different KPIs that you want to manage, but let's just concentrate on one and put success criteria around it and then start to expand it out.
And do you see people, sorry, this is sort of follow-up to that, do you see people expanding that use quite quickly? And what's the sort of timescale for bringing in sort of multiple KPIs and multiple proof points?
Yeah, just like Ming was showing, Ming, and you can certainly add on to that. And it's quite simple because the data fabric is behind it. It is very simple to be able to. Once you agree upon what the KPI is, it's interesting. Just like you think, something like what's a on-time shipment. You would think, oh, that's kind of easy, right? But almost every company has a different definition of on time. And we work with one company. On time it's literally considered not on time if it's early. So it's defining the KPI, and then it's very quickly. It's the logic in it, and it's the sources. It's the sources of data, because every KPI may have a different source of data. And so it is, you could do. I mean, realistically, once you start to scale, you're talking months to do it. But we're not talking like a year to get out there and do it. But it depends upon, how many data points, how many countries. I mean, we have one, CFAO is they're a $10 billion customer for us. They work in 40 different countries, and that's a lot, right? So you're not going to do 40 different country data points, right, in 2 months. It's going to take a little bit longer than that, but we'll start small. You start bringing it together, but you're talking a very short period of time in months to be able to put that together. But it's contingent upon the scope of the data, the number of data points, but then the platform does the rest.
Yeah, just add to that, I think it also depends on the situation of that particular client or partner. If somebody already know Iris pretty well, it should be an easy journey for them, because everything we do is based on Iris. We just have some additional widgets added on top of that, right? The other thing is, the way we design this is we don't want you to do a big bang for your supply chain with this, right? We want you to be able to start anywhere, start small in your supply chain. You can start with your warehouse, inventory management. You can start with your logistic piece only. You don't have to do what I showed from manufacturing, logistics, the order management, and all the whole shebang on day one. You start somewhere, and once your team gets familiar with that, the concept carries along to any of the other areas.
Yeah, and just to add, if you don't mind to that, based on what the other gentleman said too, is that we do have a particular partner. It's UST, and they have it's a control tower around visibility, which now runs on Iris. But how long did it take us to get that first set of KPIs? Wasn't that like 8 weeks? UST.
It doesn't even take that long. The whole KPI part. Yeah.
And so that partner now is immediately using that platform. It's kind of like our Epic situation, right? Epic runs off of Iris. Same thing now with this UST Omni, runs off of Iris. But they chose us because it was extremely quick to be able to bring value to expand their control tower and then scale.
By the way, even though I showed you a control tower version, right, so the demo, it doesn't mean control tower is the only thing you can do with this.
Yeah. Yeah, and POSIT would be a good one with that, right? I mean, there's just so many things that you can do with it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, depending on what area of the business as well, whether it's like warehousing or it's purchasing. Yeah, there's so many different areas it can apply to.
Yeah.
So one thing I should have mentioned, but I forgot, is we are not here trying to rip and replace existing supply chain solutions. We are not in the area of supply chain day-to-day operations, right? We're not going to tell you how to run your warehouse, how to fulfill your everyday orders, right? We're not to do that, to replace your existing OMS, TMS, YMS, all of those existing supply chain solutions. We are here trying to bridge the gap, for all of these systems out there, which help every area, different area in your supply chain. But the bad part is they don't really talk too much. When you have a problem, usually it cannot be addressed by one of these systems individually by its own. It takes across all these systems in order to really address that challenge. So that's where we comes in and provide value.
And it's such, and sorry, I'm really into this, but there was a question that we had yesterday. So it was from the U.S. Air Force, right? So obviously not European, but very similar. So what they want to do is, you can imagine, they want us to create a control tower around tracking every single spare part to every single active aircraft in the world, so that every aircraft can be constantly in the air or in the air in seconds when needed. And you can imagine a billion pieces, but they wanted, interesting enough, they wanted a control tower to be able to figure out, they called it red, yellow, green, where are the spare parts not, they don't care about the green, but what is it yellow and red when they're not going to get to where it needs to be within the time period. So we said what we'll do is we'll start with a particular region, right, Air Force Base. We'll pick a base, because to them, the data, you would think it would be, even with the U.S. Air Force and the Department of Defense, the silos of data is unbelievable, right? They're still using green screens, interesting enough. So what we'll pick exactly that. We'll pick a region, we'll pick a set of, maybe it's just, like I said, an Air Force base, and then we'll do it against that set of data. But it'll be done in weeks.
All right, looks like we are over time. Thank you all for coming and appreciate all your questions. The conversation doesn't have to stop here, right? So
right,
Mark,
right.
Paul, and I, we will be here all day today, tomorrow. Feel free to, stop any of us.
And I know we're running over, but just think of us too. It's cross verticals. All of us here are with different verticals, and I think that's the beauty of InterSystems Iris. It's active against all of our verticals.